Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Grant Wilson, and I manage our healthcare vertical here at ColorID. I'm joined by David Stallsmith, Director of Product Management. Today, we'll be discussing the current state of identity and card systems, challenges and trends, some best practices for managing credentials, both physical and mobile, and strategies for transitioning to modern cloud-based identity solutions. A little background on ColorID: for over 25 years now, ColorID has been a trusted provider of identity security products across multiple industries, including healthcare, government, higher education, and corporate institutions. We started out by selling ID badge printers, ribbons, blank or magstripe cards. And of course, as technology advanced, we expanded into contactless cards, biometrics, and now includes mobile credentials. Through this journey, we've become more than just a company that helps you print a badge. We've become experts in the technologies and applications that rely on these IDs. As a result, we've all evolved into an identity solutions integrator. As we sit here today, your biometric data can serve as an extension of your card number, and single credential is often used for multiple functions, such as opening doors, logging into workstations, parking, time and attendance, and dining. So before we get into it, a couple things to think about in this conversation. How many geographic locations make up your footprint? How many systems do you currently use as a company? Which of those systems use a card or ID in one facet or another? And have you thought about, mobile credentials and how those might fit into your space? I'm going to do my standard best to monitor the chat box. It's up on the upper right side, and I'll relay any questions you guys might have. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. David.
Great. Thanks a lot, Grant, and welcome everybody to our little webinar here on identity management, and things related to identity. I'd like to start off with some definitions, and I don't Google definitions, I just make them up, because in our world, identity kind of has its own meaning. What is identity? Well, it's how a system recognizes its users. And why does it matter? Because those systems can't function if they don't know who they are serving. So you need to get in a door, you present your badge. The door system, access control system, recognizes you, the user, because of your badge, and you get served. You're allowed to enter the door. What was the critical identity infrastructure that made that possible? And this will be a theme throughout our presentation today. Three main components to the critical identity infrastructure, coined by Danny Smith, one executive VP of ColorID and owner of our company. So we like his phrases. This infrastructure consists of credentials, which are cards, mobile credentials, anything you would present to a reader, which is the second feature of the infrastructure. Readers present cards and mobile devices to them, but also you can have biometric and other sensors, things that recognize, oh, somebody needs a service, and they're presenting a way of identifying themselves. Of course, in the background, you need software, both to manage the people so that the systems know who should be getting what access or permissions and what those credentials are, and also connect one system to other systems. So credentials, readers, software, the three main components of critical identity infrastructure. Now, this seems like a little bit out of left field, but you'll find out in a minute why we're going here. Can you take identity management out of an access control system? In other words, if you're making your badges with your access control system, is there a better way or a different way to do that? And the answer, of course, is absolutely. And why would you want to do that? Well, kind of to the title of our webinar, to get to tomorrow's modern healthcare institution today. And off we go. So this slide says a couple things. They are a little confusing. On the one hand, it says we have minimal evolution over the last 25 years. Credentials have evolved. Readers have gotten better. Systems have gotten a little better, but not that much change has really occurred. However, there are some changes in just the last few years that are starting to put pressure on badging and credential systems. Cloud solutions are coming in with a variety of different offerings that enterprises and institutions want to take advantage of. Mobile credentials are coming. AI, artificial intelligence. We don't know what that's going to cause, but I'm sure it will have an impact, and also increased security risks that we're all way too well acquainted with. These are disrupting the healthcare industry, and institutions are facing challenges in how to balance the legacy systems they're using today with the demands of modernity. The challenges we're going to talk about here, 1 through 5, legacy platforms. They're often not very flexible. We notice that as things get older, they lose their flexibility. Overseeing mixed credentials, yeah, Prox cards, magstripe cards, mobile credentials, complicates. And if you do have some mobile credentials, if you're using your phone, how do you manage those? Number 4, too many systems and dispersed locales. So yeah, we're hearing a lot about this, especially with acquisitions and other system challenges, because 5 is always other. So let's talk about lack of flexibility. Older systems, you have some new system you want to bring online, but your badges are being produced by your access control system. How do you get the ID numbers at the very least? How do you get the ID numbers out of the access control system and over to that new system? In the case of one coffee shop, or one hospital, I'm sorry, one hospital system, about a year ago, we spent months on weekly calls so that they could get their badges working at the new coffee shop in the hospital. It's just amazing how the simplest little tasks can take so much effort. This is a lack of flexibility. What else does this affect? Human resource systems. PACS, of course, is the physical access control system. Dining services, if you have a cafeteria, can you use your card there? Point of sale for buying things, book at the gift shop. Thank you, Grant. What market are we talking about here?
I like gift shops.
Print. Yeah, I know. Flowers, fluffy things. Print management, recreation center, parking. Can you use your badge to park? Well, it could be possible, but you need to share the data. So there are a lot of solutions that need to be connected to make your badges work in all the places that they need to work. Then we have different kinds of credentials. You may have more than one badge. You may have a plain plastic card that shows a picture and a name. You may have another card with a Prox chip in it. It's possible you could have a third card to open a certain kind of cabinet or a fob. In some cases, people are carrying credentials on their phones, and those can be both app-based using Bluetooth or NFC, or if you're really advanced, you might have a wallet solution on your phone that will do things for you. Like, you do know about Apple Pay and how you can use that to make payments, but how can that be used, that kind of credential be used with other systems, not just for Apple Pay? So the diversity between these various types of credentials themselves and the systems they're used with create additional separations between those systems and difficulty in communicating between those systems. For the mobile IDs you're using, whether you're using Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, or you may be using something with Google Wallet or Apple Wallet, how are those managed and deployed? There's a lot of complications there because it's still very early days for using mobile phones to communicate. Also, there's a preference within systems and access control systems in particular for a particular kind of credential. So a certain kind of credential goes on the phone. You have to have a certain kind of reader and lock that will work with that credential. And you don't often get an option to add a different kind of credential in other locks, even though the building next door may have those other locks. And so you will only be able to use those mobile credentials on one. How do you solve for that? Well, that's a challenge. The access control systems themselves, this is a very common problem in healthcare these days, no small part because of acquisitions. One hospital is using Linnell S2, another hospital is using Secure, and the third is using Genetec. How do you get that identity data shared so that doctors, nurses, administrative people can go from one institution to the other and use their same badge? We've talked to many institutions that are just trying to figure these things out. The access control systems are often not very good at sharing this kind of information between their their counterparts in that business. And also ID cards can have various types, as we said, magstripe, barcode, prox, contactless smart chip. And even within contactless smart chip, there are different ways that those things get programmed. We have just today, we had two phone calls and an email about how contactless smart chips are going to be used with some new readers that are appearing. So there's a lot of complicated pieces that need to be worked out. Um, and they don't all necessarily result in better security just because it's a new technology. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot of problems to solve there. And of course, the other category, being number 5 here, um, there are other challenges. So some of these systems for managing credentials are expensive, or if you don't have a system to manage your credentials, it takes a lot of man hours, and that's expensive in itself. Systems that are on-prem are often not well equipped to communicate with new solutions that are in the cloud. Other things that happen, slow support response times from integrators. Uh, if you want to integrate your solution with some other system, maybe you pay some money and that gets done, but then you get an update and something breaks. And now you're back into slow support response times. And then vendor dependency often happens. Well, you need to come back to us. We'll set that up for you. Well, can we do it ourselves or do we have other options? No, no, no. Come back to us. We'll set that up for you. So there are a lot of different problems that make what would you would think, it's a digital world. It's the 21st century. Things should work. Now, they often are more complicated. Um, so with all of that headache and pain in the background, what could be a right path forward? Well, we really do believe, as with so many other things right now in our 21st, what we're in the second, third decade of the 21st century, so many things right now just look like they're turning over, changing, a major inflection point. So it is with credentials and identity. And we believe that there's sort of a once in a generation, once in a decade lifetime to make some choices about managing identity and your credentials in a way that could be done so that you have more flexibility, better paths for the future, for example, for mobile and the choices that come there. And there are tools now that are scalable that can help you manage your credential lifecycle. And lifecycle meaning a credential, a badge, a person arrives at the institution, the badge is created, it's handed to them, they use it, they lose it, they get a replacement. At some point, they leave the institution and the badge life is ended. And that is essentially the life cycle of a credential. But managing that is no small feat, especially if your systems kind of chart out like this. And this is not unusual for healthcare. Might be a little clean for some and a little messy for others, but often the human resources IS information system sits in the middle. You get hired, you come to an institution, you register with human resources. And from there, the badge creation and the management process begins. And so you get a badge and you can use it usually gift shop, cafeteria, maybe time and attendance, the onboarding process, of course. These are often pretty closely connected to human resources. And so when you get your badge, more than likely it'll work at some or all of those areas. The ones outside the circle there, though, are where things start to get a little trickier. Would this tie to your electronic health records? No, probably not. Does it connect automatically and efficiently to the PACS, the physical access control system there to the right? Um, Often, if this is done automatically, it's done by a flat file transfer. Those work. They're not bad. The security is sometimes questionable. It seems to be one of the vectors of attack for data breaches these days. But if the data gets over there automatically, that's great. And if it has to be sent by email, we registered 30 new people today. Here are their ID numbers in an email or a spreadsheet. That would not be unheard of.
That is,
From access control, yeah, Grant.
I was going to say it's fairly commonplace, and I'm sure quite a few of the folks on the call can attest to that. That it's often relying on a different department, and we just onboarded 30 people, as you said. Here's an email. Please set those permissions, hoping that that gets done in an expedient time frame.
And
Or if
accurate.
they have a flat file, then it was something that was developed by a guy from 10 years ago that is, God love him, since retired. So they just kind of limp
Yeah,
along with that piece. I mean, I had
yeah,
a fellow I spoke to in Iowa had lunch with his brother. He used to work at the hospital. He said, "Hold on, let me try my badge," and it worked. He was able to get in. So you're also relying on the back end as to whether or not somebody's turning off that credential. So
yeah. That's no small part of the management of the life cycle is making sure the badges get turned off. In fact, another email that just came in today from one of our customers. We noticed badges are not getting turned off in ProWatch. Oh, okay. Well, there's a problem to solve. Evidently, it wasn't considered until fairly recently. So all of this current state, it's kind of hard to, do much with this because it's just the way it's set up. And then up at the left, I'll just point out upper left there, badge issuance. Often that is connected to the access control system. It may be done though at a separate workstation out of the human resources connection, but you may only have one choice there. So cue the angel choir. ColorID imagines a state where all these different applications, solutions, use cases are neatly connected with one another like puzzle pieces. And this is not so much to show that each of these pieces connects to the one adjacent, but rather all the different things related to identity are interconnected and work well together and make sense. So there are tools, there are ways to get here. Going back to here, from here to here, yeah, it's a bit of a journey, but it is possible, and we have been on this journey with quite a number of our customers and had some success in that. Um, we feel the key to this is credential identity management. There is the life cycle that I talked about a minute ago. Um, you have their what do we have on here? We have all kinds of stuff. Um, these are things related to the actual the middle of the life cycle from the badge production, managing mobile, single sign-on is a use, auditing, of course, reporting is always very important. Self-service features are really important because now you get your badge holders on board. They're helping you. They're submitting photos. They're reporting badges lost or stolen. Or if they find them, they're reporting that, oh, I found my badge. Never mind. But they have a way to do that because there are tools now that allow self-service participation on the part of badge holders. A really important thing in this consideration is avoiding proprietary solutions. Now, you can't completely avoid proprietary. What that means essentially is you get this from one company and they don't allow other people to play with their stuff. Um, in one way, that's important because if you want security, which everyone does, then there have to be secrets. And secrets can only be known by a few people and they can only be shared very judiciously. So secrets are important for security. However, there are ways of managing the encryption keys, for example, that govern the security between the credentials, the badges, and readers. But if you don't do that well, or your institution does not retain control of your encryption keys, you've got a gatekeeper, and you will
David,
always have to go through that gate. Yeah, yeah, Grant.
here's a question regarding encryption keys. Are those available with with proximity cards? Can you have encryption keys and utilizing those with a
Uh,
low frequency proximity card?
Great question. Pretty much no. Uh, Proximity cards, the low frequency, essentially have no security. You can buy a device on Amazon for 20 bucks. Looks like a little toy gun. You point it at an existing prox card. It squeezes the trigger. It captures the ID number from that card. You go over to another prox card or fob that's not programmed. You squeeze the trigger again, and you've cloned or recreated the original card. And that's just an example of how easy it is to replicate data on prox cards. So this unfortunately is a very prevalent um, method of identification in healthcare. The low frequency prox card, it's just, it's been around for a long time. They're over 30 years old. It continues to work. They do work very well. You present a prox card to a reader, there's nothing to get in the way from the reader capturing that prox card, and they're quite interoperable. This is the other side of security. It's convenience. And anytime you introduce security, you almost invariably decrease convenience. So it does create a problem. But healthcare, everywhere you go with your prox card, it's almost not an overstatement to say you might as well just leave it open. The password is password. There is no lock on the door. I mean, you're using a prox card. That's about the level of your security.
I think we see a lot of healthcare institutions now and some providers such as ourselves, integrators, suggesting, anytime you're doing a new build, anytime you're replacing a reader on the door, make sure that it's a multi-class reader that can read your low frequency procs, can also read an encrypted technology as well. And as we've come across, it can often be a path to replace all the readers at a particular institution to be able to migrate
Yeah,
to an encrypted technology.
no, that's exactly right, Grant. The only problem, of course, is that institutions seldom get to the next step. They hang the multi-class readers. They pay extra for that because now they support two technologies or more. Uh, but then to get to the point where they finally have all the readers replaced, now they can replace the cards with secure cards and turn off the prox feature in the readers. That's the step, or the two or three steps that often don't happen. So,
That last
that
comment, as far as
yeah,
turning off that technology, is something that I don't. Well, of course, I'm not responsible for that piece, but it's something to bring home. Once you have made that transition, make sure you're turning off the
right.
prox piece to it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So as we're talking about this kind of decision making, it's really important, right in the middle of the slide there, get the right people involved because education is crucial. And the kind of people in IT, for example, IT people often have no clue how cards work. They need to be educated. Also, executives, the people who write the checks and say, yeah, buy that. They need to be educated. They just don't understand. If they don't understand how a card interacts with a reader and they go through a door, well, that's either magic or it's high tech, so it must be secure. And why would you? But if you, so they need some education, and then get your educated people together and collaborate. Now you have a shot at some innovation. And the point is, tear down fences, get rid of whatever proprietary stuff you can, build bridges so things can connect and you have more options for more solutions and better security in the future. ColorID has been building a portfolio of connected solutions, helping people tear down fences, help them build bridges. This is bedrock to our company philosophy, and we've been working at this for years. So we're here to help. When you are thinking about, well, what do we get out of this? There are a lot of things coming, and even at any one institution, you may not have time and attendance wired in or connected to the system that distributes card numbers, for example. So that is still a coming attraction for you, like automate the connection between time and attendance and the badge system, using it in the gift shop, cafeteria. Again, often these are payroll deduction and they're tied to the HR system, but sometimes they're not, and so that can happen. You can also, if you want, there are ways to use badges in transportation for parking, for transit, shuttles. Smart building solutions are coming. Visitor management, is that going to be tied into your credential system? It can be. Deliveries, who receives a delivery? Where do the deliveries go? Do people need badges or identification or credentials for that? And building automation. There are a lot of things as people are trying to increase the greenness of their buildings and meet all the various compliance and regulations. Uh, Credentials can be a big part of that. Other things around geolocation, and then, of course, data collection and analytics. There is so much data in all the various systems, but if they're not linked and the identification credentials are not linked between the systems, then the data, it's hard to make sense of it if it's even available to be collected. So, as you're thinking about this, you're thinking who needs to get educated? What do we need to be talking about? There are a lot of opportunities for improvement here, and it's a pretty good time because a lot of things that have been done a certain way for the last 20 years are kind of changing. Systems are changing, they're going to the cloud, credentials are improving. Mobile. I mean, we heard another thing. It's been quite a week. Just today, one hospital came to us and they said, "Oh yeah, we need to read NFC on these Zebra um, handhelds, phones, I guess, so probably Android phones, and they need to verify with an NFC card. How will that work? Because their Procs or their iClass cards don't work for that. Well, this is a problem that needs to be solved. It can be solved. There are ways to do it, but it involves education, conversation, building bridges, tearing down fences, all that stuff. We got to get people together in a room. We got to say, where are we going? How are we going to get there? What are we willing to give up? What can we spend? What do we have to quit doing? What's the goal? Security and convenience. How much of one and how little of the other can we live with? So these are all decisions that have to be made, discussions that need to be had. Um, because credentials make applications work. And in addition to everything we just talked about, there are new credentials coming. Ultra wideband, it's on a phone. It measures speed and distance and angle from a reader. It can do a lot of crazy stuff. Biometrics, we already use those. We get into our phones, we get on planes. Bluetooth is a phone thing. Wallet is a phone thing. Peacock and Alero are two new credential methods for security and hopefully improved convenience that we may find in use with phones and cards before long too. So there's a lot of work being done to, as always in the tech world, to make things better and simpler. And sometimes it works out that way. But back to my point that I made a few minutes ago, because of uh, the changes that are going on right now, you have an opportunity to separate your identity management from the systems you may have been using that in for quite a number of years and suffering because of the constraints of that inclusion in that one isolated system. And if you are able to get it out of there, that's great because somebody's probably going to upgrade systems and you're going to miss this window and you may not see it again for years. So not to put pressure, but just say, there are opportunities at various times in history where you can make some changes. If you miss it, not bad, but if, maybe quite a while before you get another shot. So uh, if you go in the direction we're kind of discussing here, where you move the credential management out of the access control, human resources, or whatever, does that mean you're not going to use access control system or human resource system? No, those will continue to do what they do. They'll manage access control and employee data, but you'll use another separate system to handle the credential creation and management. And then the access control and the human resources become consumers of the identity data, essentially the ID number from the badges. So they become consumers of that data. The data goes to those systems instead of those being the systems where they are originated and managed. So that's the story. We have one last slide here. The Grant, I left him one negative minute to go through this.
Well, to that end, that's where I think Color ID excels is the consultative approach. So, we implore folks, reach out, let's connect. Um, we will consult with you. We don't charge any kind of fees on that side. We're not a beat you over the head type company, but we have multiple solutions. We're agnostic from a manufacturer standpoint. So, you know, our best foot forward is putting together the best solution, and they're scalable. So it doesn't mean if we have a smaller access control hospital or larger um, institutions, uh, there are scalable solutions for each of those. Um, but we excel with partnering up, support. Um, I know a lot of the folks on the call here we're blessed to work with. They know we answer the phone. I'm kind of neurotic about getting back to folks in a timely manner. Uh, so that's what we hope you'll get out of this is let's ask some questions. Let's talk about what you're doing. Downstream applications are the things we see the most, whether it's single sign-on and our time and attendance, cafeteria, these type of things that we're not discussing before we get there. I'm going to put the cart in front of the horse. So I have another last question, David, up your alley. Can
Yeah.
your solution connect, print to, and read contactless data for multiple types of badge printers?
Yes. That's just
So
a
this
yes.
is so we're talking about different manufacturers, different locations, being able to send print jobs to those locations. And again, it's about streamlining. I think at the end of the day, automating, centralizing, and the fact that some of these things are here now excites me a lot. So we'll look forward to some
Yeah.
further conversation on that side.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to expand briefly on that, depending on the card type that needs to be read and which kind of data to be read from the card, it can take a little question and answer to get the correct encoder in the printer to communicate with those cards. It's not something that you just look at a spec sheet and go, oh yeah, that's the one I need. But we've been through this many times, and we've got a pretty good handle on making this possibility. So yeah, definitely
Some of
reach
those,
out to us. We can walk you through that.
some of those access control systems, we have many folks that print from. They most generally will have a component, an ID badging component to there, but you can be somewhat limited in that regard as far as what's going to be able to be read.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
point. Well, again, I appreciate everybody making the time today. I ask you to think about again, a platform like this, would it solve any challenges? Some steps that you can take on your end outside of calling Color ID for some consultation, uh, and hopefully you took away something from this webinar that you can put to use.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Bye.
So, enjoy your day.